Alright, what's up everyone? This is NinjaDeathStrike bringing you the fourth and final part of my Pokemon TCGO tutorial. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about the only thing I haven't touched on thus far, and that is the regular Pokemon. I'm going to just go over the major players. I'm not going to talk about every single one of these cards. There's 36 pages of them, so I'm just going to go through by type, touch on the playable cards in the format, briefly tell you what they do and who they pair with, and hopefully I won't be talking for 45 minutes straight, but there's a lot of cards to get through, so we'll see. You know, I'd really appreciate it if you watch this whole thing, but if I ramble on for 2.5 hours, I will understand if you skip some of it. Anyhow, we're going to start with grass types. You can see, who do I want to start with? No one here. Alright, Lilligant. I'll touch on this card real quick just because it's a card that I really like. It doesn't get played a whole lot, but it's a fun card and I want to talk about it real quick. It's pretty standard. 90 HP is decent for stage 1. Only 1 retreat cost, and he's got a resistance, so that's nice. But his attack is really where Lilligant shines. 20 damage is pretty low, but you do only need a single grass energy, and the attack says flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. If tails, it's now confused. So this attack is hilarious because it just screws your opponent up so bad. No matter what you flip, you get something useful. Ideally, you want to get heads since you'll get that Perilous in there, but even getting tails gives you a nice confusion. And so this card plays really well in Vileplume decks, and we're going to look at Vileplume here in a minute or two and see why that is. But basically, anything that causes status is at home with a Vileplume, and Lilligant always causes status. So really solid card. It's only an uncommon, so it's very cheap to pick up. And definitely playable. Not, however, as playable as our next card, Shaman. This is a very expensive, very popular card in the format right now, and the main reason for that is that it's a key player in Zekrom decks. And it's a key player because of its Poke Power, Celebration Wind. What it does is, when you play Shaman from your hand, you get onto the bench, you get to rearrange the energy on your side of the field however you want. So the reason this is so good with Zekrom is because it also uses Pachirisu to get extra energies on the field and then pushes all those energies onto an attacker who gets to hit for some massive damage really early in the game. Shaman can also work as a tech card in many other decks. Anytime you get stuck with energy on guys you don't want it to be on, you can throw it on a Shaman, get it up to your attacker, and get to attacking much earlier than you would be able to normally. So Shaman's a really great card if you want to build a Zekrom deck, which I told you before, don't, because they're lame. They don't take a whole lot of skill to play, and they're kind of cheap, but they are really, really good. So anyhow, if you're going to go that route, you're definitely going to want Shaman, and it's a solid card. Pretty much in really any other deck. Next, I'll talk about this one real quick. Superior from Black and White with the ability. Crappy HP, but he does have a very nice ability, Royal Heal. It's basically like a counter poison. Every time between turns, you get to heal 10 damage from all of your Pokemon, and that's both yours and your opponent's turn. So you heal 20 damage per round from everything. That stacks up really fast, and anytime your opponent is not able to keep a constant string of high damage attacks coming your way, you're going to end up healing off a lot of damage. This can also work with Reuniclus, since you can spread your damage around and then heal it all off. Definitely a playable card. Next we have Sunflora, who's a really cool card. Sunflora is a big player in any kind of grass-heavy deck, and for good reason. That reason being his Poke Power Sunshine Grace. Sunshine Grace lets you once per turn search your deck for any grass Pokemon and put it into your hand. So it's kind of like a pretty solid deck engine, especially if you are using Vileplume. Since Vileplume shuts off trainers, you can't use PCOMs to search your deck, but if you're playing Sunflora, you still have the ability to get Pokemon out of your deck while your opponent is locked out of that option. So Sunflora is a very good card. I would recommend at least one and probably two in any grass-heavy deck, because they're really going to help speed up those decks a lot and give you a fast, quick advantage, especially if you have Trainer Lock going as well. Next, we have Vileplume. Vileplume is a major anti-metagame Pokemon right now. And what I mean by anti-metagame is kind of a not the most popular, but able to counter some of the most popular stuff being played right now. And that's due to his Pokebody Allergy Flower. It says each player can't play any trainer cards from his or her hand. And this ability is a little bit misleading. It says trainer cards, but what it means is item cards. You are both still allowed to play stadiums or supporters, you just can't play items. And so the idea with this card is that you get Vileplume up and you don't run a lot of items while all the other decks in the format do. So as soon as this card goes up, things like Junk Arm, Catcher, PCOM, Rare Candy, Switch, they're all unusable. And so every time your opponent draws one of those cards, it's a dead draw, and it's going to clog up their hand and give you an advantage. So if you're using Vileplume, you want to get it on the field as quickly as possible. Ideally by turn 2. And because of that, I want to talk about something real quick. The basic Oddish only has 40 HP. So this is catcher bait at its best. Yanmega can also pick it off with linear attack. Therefore, if you're playing Vileplume, always bench your Oddishes 2 at a time, because one of them probably will not survive the round. With that being said, Vileplume is an amazing card, gives you a completely unique kind of deck if you want to play with it. And it pairs really well with a lot of the cards that we're going to look at here in the grass section. The next one being Leafeon, also from Undaunted. And Leafeon's attack, Miasma Wind, does 50 damage times the number of special conditions on the defending Pokemon. There are several cards that we'll look at immediately following this that are able to put special conditions onto the active Pokemon from the bench. You could also play it with Lilligant and retreat to Leafeon. And for a single colorless energy, you're able to do 50, 100, or sometimes even 150 damage. So Leafeon is a very cheap, very good card to play in any Vileplume deck. And it is supported by the last card we'll look at for grass, Roserade. Another stage 1 with that standard 90 HP, and another Pokemon with a Poke Power, Energy Signal. What Energy Signal does is, whenever you attach a grass or psychic energy onto Roserade, even if it's on the bench, you get to put a special condition on the defending Pokemon. If you put down a grass energy, you get to confuse it, and if you put down a psychic, you get to poison it. And if you put a rainbow energy on Roserade, you get to poison and confuse it. So you can put a rainbow energy on Roserade, poison and confuse the defending Pokemon, and then hit for 100 damage with a single energy with Leafeon. That's awesome. Roserade, Leafeon, Vileplume is a great beginner deck because it's cheap and it's good. You have a shot at beating any deck in the format as long as you get your Vileplumes up fast enough. And that's going to do it for grass. So let's take a look at fire. We've got a couple of fire Pokemon we haven't talked about yet. Nobody here. Oh, our first one is going to be Ninetales. There's 2 versions of this card, one from Heart Gold, Soul Silver, the other from Call of Legends. Both of them do the exact same thing, so it doesn't matter which one you have. And again, this is another Stage 1 Pokemon with a Poke Power. If you're seeing a theme here where all of these playable cards have Poké Powers. That's because all of the playable cards have Poké Powers. The cards with Poké Powers are generally going to be a lot more useful than just a card with 2 random attacks. Unless those attacks are really, really great, Poké Power cards are almost always going to be better because they let you, just do cool things that you can't do with regular boring old cards. So Ninetales Poké Power Roast Reveal lets you discard a fire energy and then draw 3 cards. So it's basically like a built-in Sharon. And you want this card in any fire deck you build. The discarding energy, I think I've mentioned a couple times, is generally not too good, but if you run Fisherman or Energy Retrieval, you can get them back. And unlike Engineer's Maintenance, this isn't a supporter, so you can use this and another supporter and you get 3 cards. Like, this will speed up your deck really quick. Sees play in both Typhlosion and Emboar decks. Some people will tell you not to use it because it's catcher bait, but I disagree with them. I still think this is a great card and that it warrants use in any kind of fire deck. Next up we have Reshiram, one of the 2 biggest cards in the format right now. Reshiram and Zekrom, when they came out in the black and white expansion, completely changed the face of the metagame. Both of the most popular decks right now center around these guys. There are several other high-tier decks that center around these guys. They're literally too good. Like, these cards are too good. They shouldn't be allowed. And let's look at why. Basic Pokemon, 130 hit points. Are you kidding me? There's stage 2 cards that don't have 130 hit points. On top of that, we've got 2 amazing attacks. The first one, Outrage, for a double colorless energy, lets you hit for 20 damage plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on Reshiram. And you've got 130 hit points. You can have a ton of damage. It's awfully hard to one-hit KO this thing, and if you don't one-hit KO it, it's going to kill you because it's going to hit you with a boosted up Outrage and just ruin your day. The second attack, Blue Flare, also amazing, 120 damage, so that's going to kill a lot of stuff in one hit, and with the downside that you have to discard 2 fire energies. Now, most of the decks that play Reshiram are going to have a way to get those back. The main 2 are going to be Typhlosion, which I showed you last time, can just put them right back onto Reshiram. And the other one is going to be Emboar, who we'll look at in just a second. So Reshiram, hands down, one of the best cards in the format. If you manage to get a hold of them, keep them because they're awesome. And followed by Reshiram, we have Emboar, who is kind of his partner in crime. I want to talk real quickly about the quote-unquote bad Emboar. Lost my train of thought there. I was looking at the pretty hollow effects. The bad Emboar, that's the one without the ability. Bad is kind of a misnomer here. 150 hit points means it's not going to get killed very easily, and Flare Blitz hits for 150 damage, which means it's going to kill you. Discard all the fire energies. That's manageable, especially since it only takes 2. And thanks to the second Emboar, which we'll look at now, that's not a big deal. You can get them back. Emboar number 2, or Good Boar, as it's called, also has that nice beefy 150 hit points. And it's got an ability, Inferno Fandango, which has to be one of the greatest names in the Pokemon trading card game right now. What it does is it lets you attach as many fire energies from your hand as you want per turn. So it's basically just like for Alligator Prime, only with fire energy. His attack is decent, but you shouldn't ever be using this. Ideally, you want to be attacking with Reshiram or Bad Boar, and have this Emboar sitting on your bench to power up their attacks turn after turn. So the general combo is ability Emboar, Reshiram or Bad Boar, and then either Energy Retrieval or Fisherman that lets you get those energies out of the discard every turn and then just keep attacking for ridiculous amounts of damage every single turn. The only problem with both this and Bad Boar is they have a massive retreat cost. So if this guy gets catchered up, which he will, you need to have a way to get him off. I'd recommend probably playing at least 2 switches in any deck you use this guy in, because he will get catchered onto the bench at every opportunity. I believe that is going to do it for fire types. Yep. You can see down here there are Victinis. I'm not going to talk about them yet. They're from Noble Victories, which hasn't been released, so we don't really know what they're going to do in the metagame yet. I'll skip over them for now. And move on to water. 1 second. Alright, water. Let me talk real quick about Basculin. This card looks very unimpressive, and it pretty much is, with one exception. It's an awesome counter to Donphan, and it's common. So if you're a new player, you don't have a lot of cards, and you need a way to combat Donphan Prime, this guy will do it. For Flail, basically it's kind of like Outrage, only crappier, but it does hit Donphan for weakness, and Donphan can't one-hit KO you with Earthquake. So you get hit with an Earthquake, don't die, and then Revenge Flail for 120 damage, or for 100 damage, I guess. I don't know, for a ton of damage on Donphan. Anyhow, cheap Donphan counter. That's all you need to know. Next we have Blastoise, 130 HP. That's kind of disappointing for something as bulky as Blastoise. I mean, look at him. He is one fat mofo. You'd think he'd have more hit points, but he doesn't. He does, however, have some very useful abilities and attacks. His Pokepower Washout, if Blastoise is active, you can move as many water energies you want from your bench Pokemon to him, which is very nice. It works great with anything that's got water energies on it, especially Floatzel, who we'll look at here in a sec. And then his attack, Hydro Lancer. Return 2 water energies to your hand, and then it snipes for 100 damage. So not only does it hit for a solid 100, it lets you choose the Pokemon that takes that damage. You're able to hit anything on the bench, which means you can pick off supporters which can really cripple your opponent's deck if you take out all of their, bench warmers that they need those useful abilities to get their deck running. You can just snipe them off the bench, and then your opponent doesn't have any way to execute their plan. So this can be a really solid card. It's not the best, but it's certainly good. It's got some really good matchups right now. And it pairs very well with Feraligatr Prime, who's able to return those 2 water energies that you had to put in your hand back to Blastoise every turn, thanks to his ability. And it also pairs well with Floatzel, who we'll look at here in a second. Let's see. Yep, Floatzel's our next one. Stage 1, 80 HP. The only thing we care about is water acceleration. It lets you attach an extra water energy to Floatzel every turn. Doesn't count as your energy attachment for that turn. So you can put one on Floatzel and then still put one on something else. This works great with Blastoise because you put that energy on Floatzel and then you move it to Blastoise using his power, and he hits for 100 damage every turn. So that's as simple as it gets, really. That Blasto Floatzel, again, is a very good deck for beginners. You get 1 Blastoise just for finishing the Blue Deck Trainer Challenge, and both Blastoise and Floatzel are very cheap cards to obtain. And that might be it for Water Pokemon. Let's see. Touch on Manaphy real quick. No retreat cost, 60 hit points, Deep Sea Swirl, shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 5 cards. Some people use this instead of Cleffa because it's got more hit points, so Yanmega can't snipe it. And that's solid. I generally prefer Cleffa though because it doesn't need an energy to attack, and it lets you draw 6 cards instead of 5. Still, Manaphy is a very good card. If you don't have Cleffa, Manaphy is a perfectly acceptable substitution. I'll look at Samurott real quick. 140 HP, that's very nice. And on top of that, he's got shell armor, which, just like Donphan Prime, reduces any damage he takes by 20. Unfortunately, Zekrom still flash fries him, but you know, everything else is going to have a hard time taking this guy out just because he reduces so much damage. He also has a really nice attack for 3 colorless. You hit for 70, so that's an immediate OHKO on Donphan Prime. Plus it does 10 more damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So if you have 3 waters, you hit for 100, and you can do more than that. So Samurott's a very playable card. Not in any of the top decks, but by no means bad. Let's see. Anybody else that matters? Starmie, Tentacruel. We talked about these guys. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for water. So now let's look at lightning. Lightning's kind of a underrepresented type in the metagame right now. I have a feeling we're only going to end up talking about 1 card here. Oh, no, 2. Sorry, I forgot 1. First up is Pachirisu. Another, as I mentioned, was Shaman, the other key player of the Zekrom deck, key supporter of the Zekrom deck, and that's because, once again, he's got a Poke Power, self-generation. When you play Pachi from your hand to your bench, you can attach 2 lightning energies to him for free. And so it lets you get 2 free energies into play that turn, and then you can move those energies using Shaman. That's the only reason he's any good. His attack is pretty terrible, and his hit points are not great, but he works with Zekrom, and he's from Call of Legends. So for that reason, he is ridiculously overpriced right now. Another reason not to play Zekrom. It's an incredibly expensive deck to build at the moment, so, you know, play something else. Please, please, don't play Zekrom. And speaking of, well, I'll look at Thundurus real quick, just because he has a full art version. But he's not that good. I mean, he's not bad. Disaster Volt, discard an energy for 80 damage. It's good. It's just that there's a thing called Zekrom, which is infinitely better. Again, basic Pokemon with a ridiculous 130 HP. He's got Outrage, just like Reshiram, and he's got 120 damage attack, just like Reshiram. His is Bolt Strike. The downside of this one is that it does 40 damage to itself. Not exactly convenient, but also not terrible. I mean, you do 40 damage to yourself, then you just Outrage and kill everything else. So a Zekrom is a really, really good card. I just, you know, I covered most of this with Reshiram. This card is just too good. If you get it, keep it, because it's awesome, and it also works as a tech card in almost any other type of deck you want to play. On top of that, Zekrom is a lightning type, and that means that after 1 Bolt Strike, he can 1-hit KO Yanmega with Outrage, since Yanmega is weak to lightning. So he's a fantastic Yanmega counter. He is weak to Donphan, so watch out for that. But yeah, just a phenomenal card. And that will do it for Lightning. 2 cards. Next we have Psychic. I think we've got a few more useful cards in here. The first one is going to be Gothitelle. Gothitelle is your second option for Trainer Lock. If you don't want to use Vileplume, you can use Gothitelle instead. And it's got 130 hit points, so again, it'd be nice if it was 140. And it has an ability, Magic Room. As long as this is your active Pokemon, your opponent can't play any item cards from their hand. Notice that it only says your opponent. You still can. And that is the draw to playing Gothitelle over Vileplume. You're not trainer locked while your opponent is, so you can still play all those switches, catchers, junk arms, you know, all that good stuff is still accessible to you while it's shut off for your opponent. This comes with the price, though, of needing Gothitelle to be your active. And that's where the problem arises. That 130 hit points doesn't look so good anymore. It is a lot better without your opponent being able to play plus power, but there's still a fair few number of things that are going to be able to OHKO Gothitelle. That being said, this is a really good card, and it is a force to be reckoned with in the metagame right now, because with the help of Reuniclus, who we'll look at in a minute, and who you've seen me use in a couple of my videos, you're going to be able to move all the damage off of Gothitelle, so if you can't one-hit KO it, you can't win, because all the damage is going to be gone every turn. The attack, Mad Kinesis, for 3 colorless, does 30 plus 20 more for each psychic, so it's going to hit for 90 if you have 3 psychic energies, which ideally you will want to. Not a great attack, but at least it's workable, and it's your only option since Gothitelle has to be active in order to get that trainer lock down. And our next psychic type is going to be, I guess I'll mention Miss Magus real quick. I've never used this card, but I think it could be good. It's a stage 1, and it's got a Poke Power that lets you move all of your psychic energy around. So it's just like Meganium, only with psychic energy and easier to get onto the field. Next is Mr. Mime. This is a card that will only see play in Lost World decks, but I'll talk about it real quick. His Poke Power lets you look at your opponent's hand, and they get to look at yours. This is really important for Lost World because you need to see if they have any Pokemon in there so that you'll know whether or not to use Hurl into Darkness. The general idea is if there's Pokemon in their hand, use Gengar's Hurl into Darkness. If there's not, use Gengar's Curse Drop to put damage on the field. And that's it. That's all you need to know. Mime Jr., another Lost World player. His attack for free, doesn't need an energy, and it lets you put the top card of your opponent's deck into the Lost Zone. So, you know, if you manage to put a Pokemon in there, you're one step closer to winning. Next we have Mach, who is a player in Mewbox decks. You've seen me use him a couple of times, and that's because of his first attack, Sludge Drag, for 1 psychic energy. You can switch the defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's Pokemon, and that Pokemon is poisoned and confused. So it basically is like a catcher with the added effect of poisoning and confusing. And under Trainer Lock, that is a nasty attack. It slows down your opponent and lets you do lots of other mean things to them while they're stuck in the active position, dying slowly to poison and hurting themselves in confusion. Next, we have Reuniclus, another card you've probably seen me use. Horrible HP, not even 100 for stage 2, but amazing ability. Damage Swap lets you move the damage around on your side of the field however you want. So basically, the idea with the Reuniclus is get up Trainer Lock so that no one can play plus powers or catchers, and then move damage. And move damage off of the active, preventing it from being one-hit KO'd and allowing you to keep attacking with it every turn. Great ability, terrible card otherwise. Anyone else I want to talk about? Nope, don't care about any of these guys. Slowking. Slowking's an interesting card. His Poke Power, Second Sight. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 3 cards of either player's deck and put them back in order however you want to. That is a more powerful ability than it sounds if played right. You need some support to get it to do anything, but if you can either discard your opponent's hand, or if you need them to draw Pokemon, if you're playing the Lost Zone, you can use this card to make sure, basically to control what your opponent gets. You can kind of lock them out of their own deck because you can make sure they get a terrible draw every turn. And for that reason, this is a solid card that can pair very well with either Lost World decks or Sharpedo, who we'll look at when we get to Dark types. And last one, real quickly, Spiritomb, Spooky Whirlpool, basically acts as a Professor Oak for your opponent. It makes them shuffle into their deck and draw 6 new cards. Why would you ever want to do this, you ask? It's, again, a Lost World thing. You can make them draw a bunch of new cards, look at their hand with Mr. Mime, and if they drew a bunch of Pokemon, you chuck them all into the Lost Zone with Gengar. So this is another card that you're going to see in Lost World decks and nowhere else. And it also has very cool card art. So that's going to wrap up Psychic. Making pretty good time, but looks like I'm still going to have about another hour, or close to an hour. Let's see how quick we can get through these, though. Fighting, I'll talk about Excadrill real quick. Drill Run is a decent attack, 80 damage and a guaranteed energy discard. That can be nice, but it's not fantastic. Still, it's playable. Next, Tyrogue, another baby. As with all babies, 30 hit points, no weakness, no resistance, no retreat cost, which is very nice. And Tyrogue is kind of the Donk King, especially if your opponent can only lead a Cleffa. If you lead with a Tyrogue and you go first, you win. Because Mischievous Punch for no energy does 30 damage, so that's really good. And it's not affected by resistance or weakness, but still. Tyrogue is a great scout, and just a really good card that can work as a tech in pretty much any deck you want it to. And I'm not going to talk about Cubone Marowak, but they do have a role which hopefully I'll be able to show you later. I just don't want to waste time on them right now. Looking pretty sparse for fighting here. Yeah, that's it, guys. That's it for fighting. Next. It's not to say fighting is terrible. I mean, it's got Donphan and Machamp, but we already talked about those. So, next. We've got Dark. And our first card is going to be Sharpedo. Oh, that's nice. As I said, this goes well with Slowking. And Sharpedo is for gamblers because, let's look at this attack. Strip Bear. Awesome name. Strip Bear. Flip 2 coins. If both of them are heads, your opponent discards all the cards from their hand. Basically, you have a 25% chance to just screw your opponent over. If you get this off on turn 2, it's good game, or it can be very, very easily. Especially when paired with Slowking, you dump their hand, and then you make sure that they draw crappy cards for the rest of the game, and you win. That's all there is to it, really. Sharpedo, every time you see a Sharpedo, you should be a little bit scared, because there's a 25% chance that it's going to ruin your day. Next card is Mandibuzz. I just want to talk about one attack here real quick. If you remember Tyranitar Prime's ability to hit everything on the field for damage, that pairs really well with Mandibuzz's attack Blindside. It does 50 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. Only 1 darkness for a 50 damage snipe. That's a great attack. And if you can put damage on with, you know, Tyranitar or anything else that can hit the bench, you can snipe the bench for 50 damage. Great card. Good in a Tyranitar deck. Next we have Weevil, who's a disruptive little bugger. 80 hit points, no retreat cost. That's very nice. And his ability Claw Snag, whenever you play Weevil onto the bench from your hand, you get to look at your opponent's hand and discard a card. So again, this could also work with Sharpedo as well, because then, you know, you discard their entire hand, and then the next turn you play down a Weevil and discard the only card that they got to draw last time. His attack is a 30 damage snipe. Not that great, but Claw Snag is really the only reason you'd play this. And it is a very disruptive ability, especially since you're the one that gets to choose, and you get to see their hand. It's not at random. And it can, you know, you can pick out a card that would really help them otherwise. Normally, you're going to want to go for supporters, since those are the engines that most of these decks run on, unless they have an evolution that would really damage you if it came out next turn. And next we have Zoroark, probably the best dark type that's out right now, I would say. He's got 100 HP, which is great for a stage 1. Only 1 retreat cost, and 2 great attacks. First one is Nasty Plot for a single dark. Lets you search your deck for any card and put it into your hand. That's nice, but the real draw here is Foul Play. For double colorless, choose one of the defending Pokemon's attacks and use this attack. Done. Anything that has a big attack, Zoroark copies it and probably does it better. Especially if it has to discard a particular type of energy. Zoroark doesn't have to do that since he doesn't have that type of energy. Normally he just has a single DCE. He makes a great counter to the dragons since with a single plus power, Zoroark is able to turn their attacks against them and get a revenge Oko. So just a great card. Can be teched into a lot of decks, usually is played in stage 1s, but a really good counter to dragons right now. And that, I believe, will do it for Dark. Hey, we're making progress. 35 minutes. I can do this. Steel. This will be quick. Let's see. Kling Klang. 140 HP. 3 retreat. Gear Shift lets you move Steel energy around however you want it. So it's just like Meganium, just like Mismagius, only for Steel. And that's it. Done. Steel's terrible right now. So don't play Steel deck. Next. Let's see. Anything. Colorless. For first one is going to be Buffalont. 100 HP basic. That's nice. And his attack, Revenge. Again, single, double, colorless. Does 20 damage if any of your Pokemon were knocked out from an opponent's attack during his or her last turn. This attack does 70 more damage. So basically, if you bring it in on a revenge kill, it does 90 damage, and that means that it will Oko Zekrom if it used Bolt Strike last turn. That's huge. Buffalont's a pretty good card, techable in a lot of decks, and the only downside is a 2 retreat, but still. This is a playable card. It's solid. Next we have Cleffa. Cleffa is going to be a tech card you'll see in almost every deck that is played. The only one that doesn't really play it, I think, is ZPST, and they still play it sometimes. So why is it so good? Well, let's see what it does. Pokebody, we know, as long as it's sleeping, it can't be hurt. But the attack, again, for free, like all baby attacks, shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 6 cards. That's awesome. I mean, that can get you out of a bad hand very fast. It can get you out of a judge. Ideally, you want to have a Cleffa in your deck, and you want to have a Collector on the first turn, and then you look at your hand. If there's not a whole lot you can do with your hand, you want to get Cleffa out first turn and just keep eking until you get your bench set up. She's probably going to die before that happens, but every turn you get to eke is a new chance at drawing into something that's going to win you the game. This card should be in almost every deck. I'll talk Dodrio real quick. Pokebody Retreat Aid. As long as Dodrio's on the bench, all of your Pokemon play 2 less energy to retreat. So anything that's got 2 retreat cost or fewer retreats for free, that's nice. It can work as a tech card. The same can be said about Noctowl. I'll skip to him real quick. Night Sight lets you draw an extra card every turn. You know, that's cool. That's a good card. Again, another really awesome card art. And another optional tech card. You know, it's not standard in any decks, but it probably wouldn't hurt you in any deck either. And then we have Cincino. This is another big stage 1, part of the kind of stage 1 rush archetype. And the reason for that is this attack, Do the Wave, again, single, double, colorless, so you're able to get it played in 1 turn. Does 20 damage times the number of your bench Pokemon. So if you have a full bench, it does 100 damage for 1 energy if you play a DCE. This pairs really well with Zekrom since they can both operate off of that DCE. And this is a really good card for very cheap. They're not too expensive normally. And they play very well in stage 1s alongside Yen Mega and Zoroark. Anyone else we want to touch on? Let's see. I think that might... I'll look at Smeargle real quick. Smeargle, the only reason you'd have him, again, is another tech card. His Pokepower Portrait lets you look at your opponent's hand, which is big for Lost World decks. Again, another way to look at the hand. And choose a supporter you find there and use it. This doesn't count as using a supporter for you, so it basically lets you play 2 supporters every turn, which can be nice. But the main thing is you get to look at your opponent's hand, which is even nicer. Okay, one more and we're done. Tornadus. This guy was released with the Emergent Powers set and really pushed Zekrom decks to the top of the metagame right now. And the reason for that is his resistance to fighting means that Zekrom doesn't get demolished by Donphan anymore, since you can use Zekrom to counter him. And in addition to that, he has a great attack, Hurricane, for 3 colorless, does 80 damage, and move a basic energy card to one of your bench Pokemon. This is fantastic because you can play a DCE and a Lightning Energy and use Tornadus to power up your Zekroms on the bench. So as soon as Tornadus goes down, you can bring in a Zekrom who you've been able to attach energy to thanks to the attack and hit for Bolt Strike. Tornadus is a really good card. You can play him in other decks outside of Zekrom, but his main use is in Zekrom decks, working as a secondary attacker and covering Zekrom's weaknesses. And done. I've talked about every, well, not every, but most of the playable cards in the format. I hope that these tutorials have been helpful. I'd love suggestions on other things you guys would like to see. I do really enjoy making these a lot, so if you're watching these, leave me a comment. Let me know. I think what I'm going to do maybe from now on is showcase a deck maybe once a week, showcase a deck style, give you some ideas on the type of cards you're going to want to put into it, how to build it, and then maybe even show a test match with that deck later in the week. So I would love for you guys to leave a comment. Let me know what kind of decks you'd like to see me use. I have a lot of cards. I do not have all of them, but I can make most of the top tier decks right now. I shouldn't have a problem putting together. So if you'd like to see a particular deck style or a type deck, let me know. I will build a deck. I'll show you step by step how I'm doing it, the thought process I'm using to put it together. And then later in the week I'll post a video using that deck so you can see how it works. As I said before, I really enjoy doing this. You know, I'm a teacher by trade, so I like being able to impart knowledge. I know a lot of you guys are just starting to get into the game, so if you have anything else you'd like for me to do a tutorial on, let me know. Until then, stay tuned guys. I will have more videos coming your way shortly. Thanks.